Coming up on First Updates Now, Greg Needel from REV Robotics joins us to talk about new REV Ion and REV Duo with their awesome product lines that have come out with hundreds of new products. And of course, we're going to highlight some of them. I don't know if we'll get to all 300 of them or not. We'll find out. But I'll talk about the future direction of REV and take questions from the audience. Get ready for fun. Your destination for first content, updates, and gaming.
Welcome to the fun.
First Updates Now is supported by Stryker Careers. If you're a college student or recent graduate looking for an incredible internship, take a look at Stryker. Stryker provides a housing stipend, great pay, and an opportunity to work with state-of-the-art medical technology equipment. Discover why so many First alumni are coming to Stryker for their internship or career at careers.stryker.com. First Updates Now is supported by the Milwaukee School of Engineering. MSOE offers week-long summer camps where high school students get to preview college by living on campus, exploring engineering programs, experimenting in labs, meeting with professors, and participating in fun group activities. Are you ready to experience STEM at MSOE? Visit msoe.edu/summer to learn more and register. Welcome to First Updates Now for May 10th, 2022. I'm your host, Tyler Olds. Greg Needel, co-founder and CEO of REV Robotics, joins us to talk all about their new REV Ion and REV Duo product lines. And of course, as well as our typical conversation, who knows what stories will unfold as we go through the evening. That's always the fun part. Greg, welcome back.
Hey, Tyler, it's great to be back. Nice and relaxed after championship.
I was gonna ask you, man, a couple of weeks, I feel like Rev never sleeps, right? So do you get a little bit of time off to enjoy the post champs lull?
There's a thing where it just builds up heading to championship, especially this year with the announcement of Ion and Duo. It was kind of a lot building. So now that champs is over, there's a little bit of tension off, but it's a year-round thing. I mean, we have to keep pushing forward because we're thinking about the next kickoff and the next season, and we're well in the preparations for that already. So,
and I think you put on yourself a little bit coming out with a huge new product line right prior to champs, coming out with that announcement too, right?
Yeah, but I mean, the timing was actually pretty intentional because there is something about launching products into the off season, giving us a little bit of extra time. We're not dealing with the, oh my gosh, this thing isn't shipping right by kickoff. Give people some opportunity to absorb what we're doing, give us some feedback, and then if something ends up coming a little bit late, it's not going to ruin anybody's season.
Yeah, and we'll be jumping into Duo and Ion just a little bit. I just want to ask you a couple things because Rev obviously has a lot of their stuff going on as well too. First Global coming up in October. Are you heading out to Switzerland yourself?
I will be heading out to Switzerland along with a bunch of the Rev crew.
Yeah,
we're really happy to have, just like we were happy to have the first championship back again in person, we're really happy to have First Global back in person in Geneva. So last time we got together as a First Global community was in 2019 in Dubai. So we're well overdue and looking forward to seeing everybody.
I know maybe we'll touch a little bit more on Switchback and BattleBots a little bit, but I know last time that we talked, you're looking at going back to the drawing board as well too for that. So how's that going so far?
Switchback is in redesign right now, but we're still pushing forward on it. Like many things in my life, it had to take a back seat to first championship and some of the other Rev stuff we're doing. But Switchback V2 is well on its way.
And chat, as we get into this, if you are watching live, if you have questions for Greg, we did take a bunch pre-show, so we'll get to as many as we can. But if you do have a question and you're watching live, take at First Updates Now. That's the only way we're going to be able to grab that. So make sure you do that in chat. If somebody asks one and doesn't do that, please just ask them to do that. That would be a big help for us as well. So let's jump into it. Let's talk about Rev and some of the new product lines, Rev Duo and Rev Ion. And before we talk about them specifically, I'd love to hear a little bit of background on just what's the thought process of going with this kind of this two brand front and this product launch, and just kind of work us through the timeline for it.
Sure. So, when David and I started Rev almost 8 years ago now, it was Rev. We just made products. And what's really happened and matured over time is that we've made products that are more for FTC or education in the classroom. And then we've made FRC products. But we have always kind of thought about how to make things clearer for teachers, coaches, and things. And so if you go to our site, you would have a 90-degree bracket. Well, is that 90-degree bracket this big because it's designed for FTC, or is it this big because it's designed for FRC? And there wasn't a really big differentiation between the two of them. So we said, with launching all of the new Ion products and all the new Duo stuff that's coming, we said, let's kind of put a line in the sand and say, Duo, which is kind of dual purpose, which is the competition in the classroom, is our FTC product line. And REV Ion is our building platform mainly for the FIRST robotics competition and larger scale robots. And so by adding those two brands, it makes it a lot easier for people who maybe don't know what things are. And then there's a little bit of just compatibility. When you buy a wheel that's an Ion wheel, all Ion wheels are compatible with Ion wheels and gearboxes and shafts and shaft colors. And it's just, you don't actually have to think about it. It all goes together. And the same thing with Duo. And that's what we're trying to do, is like, when you buy something with one of the brands on it, everything within that brand just works. And I think that that's to alleviate a little bit of confusion that people might have had with our products in the past.
So I know for Ion, which we'll get into, I think after Duo, but I just want to ask him that in general. So when you launch like 300 new products or anything like that coming out, like I just love to hear, like, how do you even determine that's what your product lineup wants to look like or anything?
Well, so with that's an interesting story. I mean, ultimately, Ion is not 300 products. Ion is like 700 or 800 products.
Okay.
You've only seen 300 of them right now. So with any of these build systems, with both our Duo build system or Ion build system, you can expand it infinitely. The thing that we have to deal with is we only have so many cycles within the year to launch new products. Everything has to be launched before kickoff or before the school year starts or things like that. And so we kind of go as far as we can during our development time. In this scenario, we had a lot of extra time because of COVID. We had more free time and more development time than we normally do, which allowed us to do all of this at once. But we go as far as we can, and then we prioritize things and we figure out what are the minimums that we need to make things work, and then how do we make sure that we build. It's like a building, right? So we build the foundation and then we add layers to it. And so there is a plan, but with both Duo or Ion, our ultimate goal here is to give teams and schools and classrooms the ability to build everything they need for the robot they're trying to imagine with these product lines. And that's maybe an unrealistic goal. There's always going to be something that somebody's going to have to do custom, but being fully complete is a very difficult challenge in competition and classroom robotics.
Let's hop into the REV Duo to start with. And I know we got a whole bunch of products on your desk. I'm not sure how many of those will fall in the Duo or Ion, but let's jump in and talk a little bit more about Duo. Anything you want to highlight from there? I know Ion's going to be kind of the bulk of our show, but let's touch on some of that as well, too.
Yeah. So Duo, with this announcement, was mainly just the branding realignment, right? So Duo is mostly filled with products that people know, they know already, they've engaged with them already. It's a little bit of a rebranding. There are new Duo products coming, but our main focus with this was get the branding kind of reestablished and then also launch a bunch of Ion stuff. I will say one of the things that I'll tease that we had this at Championship, but I know not everybody went to Championship, is we have a new Mccannum Drivetrain Kit that's coming out sometime this summer. And this uses the Ultra 90 gearboxes. And so you get totally light and loose, no motors in the middle, gives you a really great flexible construction. So I know Mccannum is huge with a lot of the FTC teams, and this Mccannum Drivetrain Kit is the best one. So that's the old one that you have on the website.
Oh, okay.
Now. But and you can see the motors going into the middle of it. This one uses the Ultra 90 gearboxes, which allow you to tuck. It's a 90-degree gearbox for ultraplanetary. So it allows you to tuck everything inside of the rails, and it packages super nice. So that is a big one coming, but there are lots of new Duo products, but we are still a small company. So we're kind of be shifting our development back and forth a little bit. So this was the big Ion launch. So expect more Duo things in a little bit.
Okay. So, and just to clarify, let me say a little bit, is that something like before FTC kickoff sort of timeline?
I don't want to promise exactly when we're launching a bunch of new Duo stuff. Prefix for a lot of conversations that you'll see. The world and the supply chain is a mess right now, and so everything is not as fast and as smooth as it was 3 years ago. So
Sure.
We are going to take this approach of only launching and announcing products when they are far enough in the process that we know that they are coming, they're in transit or in production already. We're not going to play around with these fictional vaporware products where we just don't really know when they're going to arrive. So I don't want to promise exactly anything at this moment on that, but we have plenty of stuff in the works.
Awesome. Is there anything else from Duo that you want to highlight or talk about at all?
So I'll highlight one thing, and it'll be a great transition into Ion.
Sure.
So REV Duo is all about 5mm hex shaft, which is our standard for all of the gears and wheels in the Duo system. We have a 5mm max hub. This is a half-inch hex one, but so any of the products that are in Ion will have a hub that you can plug into any one of these products and take them into Duo compatibility. So if you really love our 3-inch Omni wheels or any of the products that are in Ion specifically, you can then take them and adapt them into the Duo ecosystem. So while they are independent ecosystems from each other, they do play well with each other. So almost all these Ion products can be used for building FTC robots in Duo. And I think that there are a lot of FTC teams that would benefit from building out of some of the Ion parts.
Well, we teased a little bit ago, if you watched on pre-show, that a couple of the giveaways we're going to be doing for you. So let's start one of them. Went out for the REV Duo. What do you got in mind for that?
So we're going to give away one of the Ultra 90 gearboxes, which is this. That's the thing that enables the Mccannum Drivetrain. It is a 90-degree gearbox that bolts right onto your Ultra Planetary. It's through bore hex. It's an awesome little gearbox. So we'll give away one of those, and most people who have played within our Duo ecosystem are really familiar with how that works, and it's been a really popular product this year.
And Chad's catching on already. REV Duo, 2 words, is going to be the keyword for that. As we get more into our show, we'll draw for that in just a little bit as well for that. So before we get into Ion, let's take a quick break to thank our one of our sponsors for today's show, the Milwaukee School of Engineering, where you can learn a little bit more about their summer camps coming up. If you're interested in getting a bit more into learning more about STEM or what the fields could be, they even have one for women in STEM. Check it out here. Well, Greg, let's talk more about, of course, the huge launch that came out just prior to championships, which is the REV Ion. On there, we teased a little bit about it, talked a little about more, and I know a lot of the community has already had a chance to check it out. But let's talk a little bit more about REV Ion. I'm not sure if we're going to go through all 300 products, Greg, today, but you got a lot on the table in front of you. So let's go through more of that. And if you're watching live, we'll draw for the giveaway in just a couple minutes.
Yeah, and if you're in chat and you see anything on the table you want me to talk about, just drop it in chat, and I can be persuaded to pick it up with the camera.
Nice.
So REV Ion as a whole is designed to be a complete build system for FRC scale robots, and you can build an entire robot effectively with minimal cut, minimal drilling. Effectively, if you have a hacksaw, you can build a robot, and it's also really designed to build very, very fast. So whether it's your entire robot or whether it's just a prototype, it's all about rapid iteration. One of the things that I've felt for a long time, and you talk to a lot of the top teams, you say, well, how did you become the top team? It's all about their prototyping process, how many iterations they can get through in the same 6 to 8 week time period. And prototyping, if you're not completely set up for it with a really efficient manufacturing process, is tough. And so Ion fills the void for both of those. So if you're a team that doesn't have machining in-house or struggles with drilling holes in the center of a rail or something, like Ion is perfect for that. But if a team just wants to prototype and do fast iteration, you can also do with that and then transition the geometry to your robot, go a lot of different places with it. So at a high level, that's what Ion is.
I know one of the things I've heard you speak in prior times is kind of like what kind of like target market you're looking at inside of FRC, right? Because you talked to like, the super high end teams. Yeah, they're going to use some of it, but I think you mentioned before, a lot of it's kind of for that big 80% of the middle group, right?
Yeah. So I think I posted this on Chief before, but effectively we look at 3 ways to engage with the Ion system. So there are teams, the teams that build a kit chassis and don't have much more above that. Those teams can grab a bunch of Ion parts, build a great robot, show up to competition, and really elevate their game. And they'll have a good experience too, because it's all designed to bolt together and take apart. So you can reuse it, iterate, have a really great experience. So you could build your whole robot out of Ion. So that's one group of teams, and that's really about kind of raising the floor. The next group is kind of the middle, which is like, I really think the prototyping pieces of Ion play really strongly. Like there's a lot of top teams I've even talk about building a whole bunch of this stuff. Mm-hmm. And it's all about just how fast you can do this, different gear ratios, different bearings, going live axle to dead axle within the same structure. So I think that it as a prototyping platform is great, but also the individual pieces are cool. Like I will go on record and say that I think that we have the best Omni wheels that exist for all of FRC teams.
All right.
Well, they're metal on the outside that hold the pins, which means the rollers are replaceable. The interiors, they've got 1032 nut captures. They transition really easily, live axle to dead axle. Like there's a lot of things, but these are, I think, the best Omni wheels that anybody makes for the FRC market. And so it's like a team of any type. If you want Omni wheels on your robot, you could go for those. So
I look forward to teams completely testing the crap out of that to prove your point, hopefully too.
So anybody who's run Omni wheels, the death part of Omni wheels is when you take an Omni wheel and you get hit sideways over like a ridge or a bump or something, even slid sideways into the field. We had our fixture field was an Omni wheel bolted sideways on a chassis, dragging on the ground, where we would just slam it 6 Neo drivetrain repeatedly over this thing to try to figure out where it dies. And
sure,
it dies significantly longer than the other ones on the market. But at the same time, in the ways that it dies, you can take the wheel and replace a few small parts and be up and running again, as opposed to just kind of throwing it away. So that's the other part of this, is that the investment in the products is not just about our wheel versus someone else's wheel. It's also how repairable is it? How is it going to last season to season, right? And that's all part of the economics of REV Ion as a whole.
So we talked about the ethos of REV Ion, and we'll dive into a couple of products for that. Let's draw for our giveaway real quick that we had once again for the Ultra 90-degree gearbox on that. And if you win, please make sure you send First Updates Now a message with all your shipping info so we can get that out to you. The winner is going to be Nate the Great 8108. Congratulations for that. And we do also have another giveaway a little bit later on for REV Ion products, so stick around for more of that. But Greg, let's dive into, I know we've kind of shown a couple of products here, but I'll kind of let you take it away and just start diving into some of the really cool stuff and parts you want to highlight.
Sure. So I think the first thing I'm going to highlight is is Max Spline. So Max Spline is this shape. You probably see it on this on the piece of Max tube, but it's also in all of our wheels. And this shape is very specific. So this shape allows you to, the exterior grab, you'll get 6 points of contact for a bearing. So the standard 1.875 bearing that we've used forever just fits in, right? And it's a nice fit, doesn't come out, just right in. So that's if you want to go dead axle. If you want to go live axle, we have hubs that have the same spline shape. So you end up with a very high torque carrying ability, and those just plug in. The really nice part about this whole system is the width doesn't change. So everybody's used to bolting hubs to wheels, but normally what happens is the hub ends up outside here and you end up with bolts and nut heads, and then you have to treat a live axle wheel with a hub at a different width than a dead axle or just a bearing. We want it to be easy to go between the two of them as your robot evolves. So putting a hubs on a wheel keeps the wheel effectively the same width as if there were two bearings in it. Now, so that's one piece. The other part is everything is on a 1/2 inch grid. So these are, all of our holes are on the tops. Effectively, we're 1/2 inch grid for number 10 everywhere in the entire system. This happens to be a 2-inch spacing between the max splines, which allows any gears that add up to 80 teeth to just go right in here. So you can put a shaft, 2 bearings in and put it there. Because we're on 1/4 inch pitch, that means that number 25 chain, every single one of these pitches has an exact center to center distance for number 25 chains and sprockets.
Sure.
We have a couple like double 25s, and one of the things you might have heard about before in the first community is addendum shifting. So normally when people do chain designs, they might add a little bit of spacing to make sure that the chain is tight. So what we've done is we've done a little bit of an addendum shift on the number 25 sprockets. It's very slight, but what it allows is for exact center to centers on a 1/4 inch pitch where you get really nice chain tensioning. So there's a lot of pieces like that where, oh, I want to have a set of rollers, or I want to use a belt, or I want to use a chain, or I want to use gears. And you can just put bearings in something, put a shaft in something, put gears on, the mesh will be fine. It'll all work. And then because you've got a 2-inch spacing on all the tube, things like max planetary, things like versaplanetary, things like sim motors, things like Neos, all the gearboxes, everything just immediately mounts up. So you don't have this need for all the gusseting, all the bracketing, all the custom machining. It's just kind of going to work. So that's the premise of it is, if it's got a hole, it will fit together. And if there's a spacing, it will also just work. So we're very strategic in how we chose spacing and the sizes of gears and sizes of sprockets and belts that build the whole system together so that it's very intuitive.
I just want to take a question that came in from Chad. We'll try to take them as they are relevant to what comes in. I know we'll get to a lot afterwards. ArcBL asking, what is the structural integrity looking like on the extrusion? Can they handle being a West Coast drive, for example?
Yeah, absolutely. It's designed to be a West Coast drive. There's actually, I don't know if I can switch to the other camera here for a second, or if I can even get this one in focus. But you'll notice, so it's thin wall tubing, but the two sides of this one are thick. So this is very stiff and really kind of replacement of your similar strength as 1/8 inch wall. But you'll notice in the corners, we have this little gusseting that's part of the actual extrusion profile. So that gusseting adds a significant amount of strength to the tube in places where standard rectangular tubing doesn't have that strength. We also have a little feature in here where it acts as a nut pocket for a 1032 nut. So if you have to drop a nut down in the channel, you can just hold it with your finger and the tube itself becomes your wrench for different bolt together applications. But yes, it is designed and tested to be strong enough for your chassis, pretty much anything that you can throw about it. I will give a huge plug to James from Team 95. He does a lot of FEA work in general, and he both was part of our focus group when we were developing all this stuff, but he's got a really great thread on Chief Delphi right now called FEA for FRC, and he grabbed all the CAD for all of this stuff, and he has published totally independent. I did not influence it besides here's the CAD.
Yeah.
And he's compared it to regular tube, to different round tubes, different profiles. So if you're really kind of interested in how that looks and compares on the science side, definitely check out that Chief Delphi thread.
One other question I want to ask, you brought up 25 chain before. I know there might be some more conversation on that anyways, but there was a question submitted ahead of time from Eric from 2830 asking, are there any concerns about 25 chain stretching over the course of the season when mounted at 2 fixed points?
So 25 chain does stretch. In our testing, which has put drivetrains through a lot more running than you would see within a season, we didn't really see a point where the chain stretched to a point where it would fall off a sprocket. I will say that with any chain, you're always going to want to kind of check it. But speaking my team personally, Barbecue has run chain and tube custom drivetrain rails with 25 chain between fixed 2 points for seasons and seasons without any sort of issue. So I've never seen an issue with it. I think the biggest thing with 25 chain is you have to make sure that your alignment of your sprockets is really good, because any sort of axial misalignment, 25 chain does not take misalignment between the actual sprockets very well. And there are some issues that might get disguised that way. So if it's not aligned when you make your chain loop, you might make it longer, things like that. But a properly lengthed chain over the right pitches within a tube will not have a problem through the season. But check it, and swapping chains is not that hard, especially in the age where there is no bag. So check it in between your events if you're worried about it, but I would not be worried about it in terms of fatigue over the season.
Well, let's keep moving on product-wise on it. We'll kind of interject some questions as we go through on it. So like I said, 300 products to go through. What do you got next for us?
Man, there's so much stuff. I'll share one of my low-key, well, I guess let's keep talking about Max Spline for a second. Okay. I want to show my favorite product, but we do this. So the other story of Max Spline is that we actually have this Max Spline shaft. And this is our intake solution, or high torque solution. So normally when you would build an intake on your robot, you might have like a 1/2-inch hex shaft at the front of your robot, and then you stack 1/2-inch hex wheels on it to build your intake. But if you look at this gear's game, if you take an impact on a 1/2-inch hex shaft, it's going to bend, deform, and break. So what we've done is we've made the spline actually a shaft. So any of your wheels or intakes that have Max Spline can go directly on this. And this guy has the ability to become a live axle over a dead axle. So this becomes incredibly strong. So you put a needle bearing and a shaft in the end, and then this can run around like a piece of tubing. So the piece of tubing on the inside is your structural support way out on the edge front of your robot. And then the torque carrying capability is part of the spline. So any of your intake wheels or things like that just work. And even if you want to drive this, you can just directly put your belt or your pulley right on the end of this. So this becomes kind of a super hex in the way that it works.
That's pretty awesome.
So yeah, so I mean, it's one of those things, and we have a bunch of application examples, and I know that Orion is probably watching this, like, cringing a little bit about my promises. We have tons of application examples that we're planning on publishing. That is part of this. With a lot of the new parts of the build, whenever there's a whole bunch of new products, it's difficult to understand how everything fits together. And the only way for us to do that is to put out application examples. So we have examples of arms, of intakes, of drivetrains, of elevators, of conveyors. We took, one of the ways we actually developed the system as a whole was we took famous first robots, Einstein winners, noticeable robots. I'm not going to say which ones, but and we effectively redesigned those robots with Ion. We also redesigned every bot robot that's ever been made. What would the Ion equivalent of that be? We did this really deep analysis of making sure that you could build the shooter, the conveyor, the elevator, the intake, the roller, whatever you want to do out of stuff. And that's actually how we did the iteration cycle, where we would design the system, then build the robot, make sure everything worked. If something didn't work, we'd go back to the system, make sure that understand what our solution was for that, and we would go back and forth. And that was almost a 2-year cycle of iterating on these products before we launched them.
And you mentioned too with COVID, kind of like, did COVID actually delay things, or did it just kind of give you almost more time to perfect what you wanted, would you say?
So without COVID, I'm not sure that Ion would exist as like an entire build system.
Yeah.
I think there are pieces of Ion like Max Planetary that were kind of inevitable steps for us, but it was really COVID and the ability to take a step back and say, what do teams need and what is the difference, especially coming back from a year or two down? There's going to be some, resource limitations. There's going to be knowledge loss. How do we help reinvent FRC as it comes back from COVID? And because we didn't have to travel to events, because we're not producing a lot of product because of the seasons, that really gave us the opportunity to sit. So on the one side, this exists because we had that extra time. On the other side, all of this stuff, for the most part, was tooled up, and we were moving towards a launch of all this stuff in the fall of 21. And we had a lot of stuff ready to go. It was just the supply chain and shipping and everything just kind of collapsed on us in the fall of 21. And so I decided, let's just wait, because these are products that are here for this coming year, next year, the next 5 years, and beyond. And so if it's a good product and a good system in 21, it'll be a good product and a good system in 22 and 23 and beyond. And so I would rather wait, make sure that we don't have to increase our prices artificially just to cover shipping when it's, prices are outrageous. And so we decided to wait. So on the one side, it helped make it. On the other side, you didn't get it for the 22 season because of it. So,
well, and transparently, in fall of 21, we didn't even know if we'd have a 2022 season at the time, right? So
correct.
Look at it from your perspective. I don't know if I'd be going, as heavy into that time if I'm making all that investment to potentially have zero dividends out of it.
Well, I mean, and also, I mean, to throw this out there, like, everybody's excited about the new mechanical system, but we also just launched the new FRC control system stuff too at the exact same time. So, like, we had to execute on these like high level, power distribution hub, pneumatics hub. There are several other hubs that are out there. They didn't make the cut either. So those will make an appearance here as the year goes on.
I do want to ask a question that got submitted ahead of time. You mentioned about products that teams need. Well, Shane from 233 and FTC 6323 asked, is REV Swerve module ever going to happen?
Stay tuned. That's
all right.
I will say that REV Ion as a whole, it's designed to be a platform for teams who need off-the-shelf products. And I think the Swerve revolution is here. And so I will not promise a delivery date at this moment. I won't do anything, but I mean, Swerve is something that we are working on.
For sure. So we'll go into a few more questions a little bit, and Chad, I know if you submit, we'll get to as many as we can for things as well. But let's hop into a couple more products we want to talk about, and then we'll go into some Q&A.
Okay, so I'm gonna share two things kind of at the same time, and they're pretty fun. So one of the nice things that we're doing with our with all of our gearboxes is we're doing through hex or socketed hex. So normally when you get a gearbox together, and I'm sorry, I have to align for the camera, the actual shaft that these gears are sitting on is sticking out of the gearbox. So in order to do anything to it, you have to take the whole gearbox apart or replace the whole thing. Serviceability becomes this weird thing, especially in like a West Coast drive configuration where you're trying to put the gearbox, then mount the wheels. If you're doing chain and tube, getting those runs to go all together. So by doing through hex, and all this means is that the output gear has a max spline in it, allows you to take any shaft, any half-inch hex shaft of any length, and make your gearbox have that long of a shaft. So it allows you to, this is just a standard piece of shaft, so you can make it extendable as long as you want. But also, if you're building a West Coast drivetrain, you can build the entire West Coast drivetrain with the axles, with the bearings, everything set up, and then introduce the gearbox to it, as opposed to kind of going the other way. So your gearbox and your motors, those become independent of each other so that serviceability becomes a lot easier. And so we're doing that on the drivetrain gearbox. We have this 2-into-1 gearbox, which I don't know if I can easily show this on the other camera, but this 2-into-1 gearbox, which just accepts 2 Neos, and this has a number of different ratios in it. The drivetrain gearbox has a number of different ratios in it. This 2-into-1 gearbox will also support being a 2-into-1 gearbox for the Max Planetary. So if you want to do something like that, the parts to do that are going to be coming soon, which will be a 1/2-inch hex input for the Max Planetary gearbox. So there's a lot of little pieces to that. But I kind of guess I'm going to say my last really fun product plug is one of the most weird things that people are maybe not going to expect is one of my favorites.
Okay.
I have always felt that servos are underutilized in FRC. And one of the reasons that they're underutilized in FRC is they are difficult to interface to within the existing COTS ecosystem. So we have 3 products in one here that are very cool. So this is our standard servo. This is our REV Smart servo. All the products here will work with anything with a 25T, which is pretty much any metal gear servo. So we have a shaft, which is a hex shaft adapter, which fits on the servo. And that's what adapts this to a shaft. We have this nice little mounting plate, which puts, gives you mountings for the types of tubes, but it's also on a 2-inch center, which allows you to mount this dead center. And what that gives you is this really fun ability to throw a bearing on a servo, which allows you to, sorry, I'm manipulating this live on camera. But what it really allows you to do is do higher load things than maybe you're thinking that a servo would be able to handle. Yeah. So servo mounts on the back, and now you have a hex shaft. So for driving a gear or driving a something higher torque, you're no longer putting that force on the servo itself. And remember, a servo is a positional device. So it's got your motor and effectively your motor controller. So you can send this to an exact position. And then the last little bit of this is this little, one of my favorite low-key products here is this 1/2-inch hex servo horn. So for doing things like releases and latches and all different things like that, you can now slide that on a hex shaft on the servo and deal with some really cool things. So for moving hoods and little intakes and latches, like this stuff was actually really, really difficult previously.
This is really cool, yeah.
And now it's not difficult. And it's all compatible with the same kind of setup. So this is one of my favorite things. I'm not sure it's going to be everybody's favorite thing right away, but when you,
it might be now. So
there are so many. When I say we kind of reinvented it, there's a lot of parts in the Ion ecosystem that will feel familiar, right? 1/2-inch hex gears, right? It's a familiar product. They're 20 DP. It's not a revolutionary thing. It's a steel gear. It's great. Sprockets, small intake Omni wheels. These are just really our version of a really good but familiar product. The thing that sets Ion apart is all of this very tight attention to detail for all of this very small mechanism where you can get a drivetrain kit up and running. I mean, there are great drivetrain kits. There are great drivetrain gearboxes. There are great, like the big stuff, but figuring out that a lot of times that little almost fiddly stuff or the small mechanisms to build those more complicated robots, that's what a lot of teams struggle with, where the high-end teams they throw billet at it. They just machine it or they mark forge it and they can make all that stuff. But this is really difficult things for a lot of teams. And so we focused on a lot of those small elements that will become more apparent what they all are and how they work. But the servo is a great example of one of many things like that that's in the system.
Well, we're going to jump into some questions from the audience here, and we'll kind of work into if other products kind of fit into it. We can kind of work it through on there. Before we get to that, though, let's give a big shout out to our other sponsor of the show, Stryker Careers. You all know about Stryker. Unless you're that person who's watching for the first time, welcome, by the way. But yeah, if you're not familiar with careers.stryker.com, they have tons of opportunities for you. If you're looking for something else, you're looking for a company where you can truly make a difference, a leading medical manufacturing technology company. I tell you, hopefully you don't have to go to the hospital for anything serious, but if you go there, you will see Stryker products everywhere. And if you want to help make a big difference and work for a place that supports you being in first, go check out careers.stryker.com. From anything from co-ops and internships where they even cover your housing if you're at their Kalamazoo headquarters to professional level and executive level all around the world. Go check them out. Once again, careers.stryker.com. And we're going to be doing a giveaway in just a little bit as well, too. But before that, we're going to get to some questions. I know we might not be able to get to all of them. We'll get to as many as we can. If for some reason, Greg, we can't get to all of them, is there a place that somebody could go maybe to get their question answered after the show?
Yeah, so you can always ask questions on our social media. We check that out. You can always email us at contact or support at revrobotics.com. But yeah, we want to answer your questions. There's also a really big thread on Rev Ion on Chief Delphi. So if you've got specific questions, I am personally monitoring that thread. So we are anywhere that
Greg's
you post about Rev Ion. I have a ping. It's I mean, people, this is the thing. So I am very personally, like, I know that, as a CEO of Rev, some people who I've been involved in this for 20 something years, I still love this stuff. I still love directly interacting with students, mentors, teams. Like, I still love this. So I will be the one on Chief Delphi responding to you, right? You can send me an email and I will respond to your email. So it's, I love this.
I think that's great. As somebody who's been around, we've always joked we're the first boomers, right? And I think that's a cool thing is that we're still the ones that are interacting with people and doing that, not just pushing it off to somebody else sometimes. I think it's great. By the way, shout out to Red Leader 342 for 5 gifted subs during the live stream. Thanks a lot, Red Leader, for that as well. All right, let's get into some questions here, and we'll see how well I pronounce names as well too. So Linmon asks about RevRobotics.ca. Are they going to see Ion products showing up there at all?
Yeah, absolutely. So for those who don't know, we launched our own Canada warehouse this past year, RevRobotics.ca. All the Ion products, things like that, will be moved there over time. I had a meeting about that the other day. So yes, Canada teams, all of this will be loaded into our Rev Canada warehouse. Sometimes it just takes a little bit of time. I'm trying to move to a thing where, like, when we launch a new product line, it's simultaneously launched everywhere. We're not quite there yet, but yes, Ion will be coming to the Canada website and warehouse over the summer and soon.
A couple of questions that came in about compatibility with other suppliers as well too. Somebody asked specifically for WCP, but I'll kind of expand that out to other suppliers. I know you can't speak for the other suppliers necessarily on things, but has there been any consideration in regards to how some of these new products might be compatible with other suppliers' parts?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So when we did the system, we didn't want to reinvent the wheel. I guess we did reinvent the wheel a couple times, but it's
yes.
the Omni wheel, but the compatibility is there, right? So all of our gears are 20 DP. So these will be compatible with any other 20 DP gears, whether that's West Coast Products or Vex or AndyMark. These will all work together. It's a half-inch hex. Half-inch hex works with West Coast Products, AndyMark, Vex. Those are things that we did not touch because they've been standards. The only things that are standard breakers, which is, I really think that's probably the crux of the issue here, is one of my least favorite standards in all of FRC is on most wheels and sprockets and gears, you have this hole pattern, and the hole pattern is 1.875. It is a very old 20-year-old standard. I had parts that had that hole pattern onto it. There's a really great story about where that hole pattern came from. But the reality was, so we moved the hole pattern on all of our wheels and sprockets to 2 inches. And so that means that if you're trying to build a dead axle system with our Omni wheel and you buy a sprocket from AndyMark and you try to bolt that sprocket to our wheel, those are not going to bolt together really well because the hole pattern's 1/8 of an inch off. But we did that to add to the ability to build in the system. So when you take a sprocket, you can put it on a piece of channel or a piece of structure that is punched at an even half-inch pitch and pick up all the hole pattern. Whereas right now, you have no way to take one of the sprockets or wheels of any sort of type and bolt it to pre-drilled structure. Even the pre-drilled structure or the holes that are on the kit chassis, that stuff doesn't work right now. So that is effectively the only standard that we've broken. But yes, we envision you taking a piece are compliant wheels and running them on Andy Mark hex shaft and all run by Falcon 500 into our drivetrain gearbox, like all that stuff will just seamlessly work. We're not going to completely make you throw away everything that you've currently got or the way you're building. Look at Ion as more of an enhancement. And then we have some new standards that will give people things like max spline and then the through bore experience you're going to get. So
if you want to start over, you can.
Yeah, you could start over. I mean, Ion is complete enough that you could just get a whole bunch of Ion stuff, build your whole robot, but the compatibility is automatically built in because we just accepted and transferred a lot of these standards into our system. There are some differences in terms of like Vex is really big on like number 8 screws. Andy Mark does a mixture of 10 and quarter 20. We're completely standardized on number 10 hardware for everything. So there are going to be some things like that. When you cross, you might have to drill out a hole or drill out a hole on one of ours. But that's little tiny stuff that definitely will still work.
I want to bring up, since you mentioned Andy Mark, Charles from 5454 asked about selling Ion parts through Andy Mark. Have there been any conversations with Andy or Andy Mark in regards to seeing some REV products up on their site as well, or anywhere else?
So Andy Mark's a reseller. We resell Spark Max and Neo 550. There's a bunch of other products that are some Duo products and things. So we haven't officially talked about what products here are going to end up on Andy Mark. Those conversations between the companies happen now and over the summer. So I can't promise anything, but we are not against that. It's just the challenge, the openly challenge to this is that, Andy Mark sells Omni wheels that they make, and those are great. And we also now make Omni wheels. And so it's a challenge to be a distributor and a competitor in some cases. And those conversations are tough. That doesn't mean we're not going to have them. But I would say that things on this table and things in the Ion product line that are overlapping with Andy Mark products, you're more unlikely to see on their website. Things that are maybe a little bit more unique that don't have overlaps, who knows?
Yeah, so for tonight, for our giveaway, we're going to give away a Max Planetary base kit with 60-to-1 gear ratio. So that gives you the base kit to adopt everything, but it also gives you a 3, a 4, and a 5-to-1 slice. So you can build a bunch of different ratio options and give Max Planetary a try. So if you haven't used this gearbox in this past season, this will give you kind of everything you needed to get into Max Planetary, which is a big part of the Ion build system.
And Rev Ion, 2 words, will be the keyword for that. So type that in chat. We'll draw in just a little bit. We'll take a few more questions. We're going to go until about 30 after the hour. So we'll get as many as we can for that as well. There was a question that came in just to kind of piggyback off our last one too. Is there any potential that Rev Ion products may be part of First Choice in the future?
Yeah, so First Choice and first distribution is something that we definitely will. I can't tell you which product or what it's going to be, but Rev has regularly donated to the Kit Parts, to First Choice, to a lot of those different distribution channels in the past. And so I wouldn't be surprised to see some of this stuff show up in First Choice. And that's one of the things that Rev does to support teams.
A couple specific questions coming in. Carson from 4028 asking, when will Spark Maxes have the CAN FD support unlocked? And I have no clue what that means, so hopefully you can explain that a little bit.
That's okay. That's a great question. So CAN FD has really come to light this year. Cross the Road brought out, Falcon supports CAN FD, and they have a Canivore. The Spark Max in its current form factor and hardware does not support CAN FD. So there's nothing we can do there to make it support CAN FD. I will say the next hardware revision of Spark will have CAN FD. All of the new the new control system parts that we launched, so the power distribution hub, the pneumatic hub, those are all CAN FD compatible devices. We have to do a little bit of software development to enable it in our firmware, but those are all CAN FD. And so as a company, our new CAN devices that are coming out will start to support CAN FD more and more, but it's not something that we can flip a switch on Spark Max and make happen. There's actually some hardware things that prevent us from doing that.
So next question coming in, Blinken is actually asking, is there an estimate when Blinken LED drivers will come back in stock?
So anything that has electronics in it is a little bit of an unknown at the moment. We are still waiting our place in line for getting the electrical parts that we need to build these components. And I will tell you, the world of electronics has gotten worse, not better, over the last 6 months. And so if it's electronics, it's out of stock, I can't really give you a great estimate right now. The best thing to do is to plug your email in. On each product page has its own website. You can put your email in, you'll get a notification as soon as it comes back into stock. And we are trying to keep the availability fields up to date to the best of our knowledge, but we really don't know on some of this. We've placed orders for components, a year plus ago, and there's stuff that we thought we were going to have already that we don't have. There's stuff that we thought we weren't going to get that's shown up. So it's a moving target. So unfortunately, I don't have an exact answer for you on Blinken, but it's the same answer to Control Hub, Expansion Hub, Power Distribution Hub, the things that are out of stock. We are trying, and we know the deadlines and schedules that everybody are on. It's a rough time that's happening right now.
I mean, you as a business, you want it in too, so you can sell it, right? So everybody's on the same page.
So there's part of it, right? Like we obviously want to produce products to sell them, but we know that teams rely on these products for their robots and what they want to do, and being out of stock helps no one. It's hard to get an inspirational experience as being part of a FIRST team if you don't have the parts to build the robot. Even though FIRST is more than robots, the robot is still an important part of it.
A couple other questions to come in for specific. We talked about the Swerve drive module earlier, but Eric from 2830 wants to know if there's any plans to release a linear elevator kit at all in the Ion ecosystem.
So I've alluded to it a couple times. What you've seen with Ion is phase 1 Ion. There's a phase 2 Ion, which we expect to do more with in the fall, pending availability, supply chain, shipping, and all that. And then there's a phase 3 Ion, which tentatively would be a championship announcement next year. An elevator kit is definitely part of it. It's this is a no secret type of thing, but a couple years ago, we acquired Competition Robot Parts, and Competition Robot Parts had a really great linear motion slider kit, and they were known for their elevators. That was one of their key products. We've integrated that with a bunch of other upgrades to create an elevator kit, but it's not ready just yet. But so yes, it's going to come, but I can't promise you exactly when it's going to come.
Fair enough. Brad Leach 6 asking, any plans for Max Planetary Ratchet Slice that directly interfaces with the Servo?
Max Planetary Ratchet Slice that directly interfaces with a Servo. I haven't thought of that one specifically. There is a Max Planetary Ratchet Slice. I think I've been pretty open about this. Max Planetary is an ecosystem of products, just as like anything else. It's a platform. So we have the Max Planetary. This is the 2-into-1 gearbox that works with it. There's a ratchet. There's a 180-degree gearbox. There's a 90-degree output. There's a bunch of accessories that are coming. That's part of phase 2. I think you'll definitely see some of that before the 2023 FRC season, but I don't want to put it on the website or give people pricing or availability or anything until it's en route to us or already on its hands, because the world is very weird right now.
And Chad, we're going to stop taking additional questions just so we can get through the remainder that we have here. Once again, REV Ion, if you're interested in winning the Max Planetary System Kit, the 60-to-1, right? Yep. So type that in chat. We'll draw for that in just a couple of minutes. A couple last questions coming in. We have a couple fun ones we'll ask at the end. Newcomb K asking, Greg, what's your favorite new product and why is it the 5-inch wheels?
I mean, I think I talked about one of my favorite products being the Servo stuff. 5-inch wheels are awesome. I don't know if people have gotten into this yet, but Ion does 3-inch, 4-inch, 5-inch, and 6-inch wheels in all flavors and varieties. The traction, the smooth, and omni. 5-inch has been an interesting gap that no one has tackled before. So normally with everybody else, it's 4 and 6.
Sure.
5-inch introduces some really fun gear ratios and drivetrain speeds that are easy to access. Is it a deal breaker, no, but it does introduce some things. Also, the ground clearance. Sometimes 4-inch wheels, it's too low to the ground for a West Coast drive, and 6 feels like you're floating on air, so it allows you to lower your CG a little bit more. So I think people will really like the 5-inch wheels, but yeah, we heard that note, and it was 5-inch wheels were almost a meme, but we definitely wanted to give people the options they asked for. So.
Last product question specific. Well, 1.5 more, I guess. Question asks, does phase 2 or 3 ion, so the future of Rev ion, include any sort of anodized tubing or anything like that, or more accessory based?
I mean, phase 2 and 3, I don't want to go too far in exposing what phase 2 and 3 are, but there are, I'm not sure we're going to do like lots of different colors and lots of different accessories and lots of different stuff. But there's definitely there are key pieces that, if you look at our build system and you look at what FRC teams build, I think a lot of people can guess what phase 2 and phase 3 is probably includes. But just like everything, it'll have our own Rev spin on things.
Is there a general timeline for phase 2, phase 3, without like even talking about what it is?
If the world was perfect right this second, we would be launching phase 2 of Ion in the fall, in time for the 23 season. And then phase 3 Ion would be a spring announcement like this one at Championship next year. And so there are definitely products that are not publicly on the website yet that are going to come before the 23 season. But phase 3 has a little bit more ambiguity.
Yeah.
Ambiguity in it. Thank you. Because we want to see how people engage with the stuff that we launch, because, and we always take feedback from teams. So what you learn and what you tell us and how you use stuff will impact what we do in the future.
All right, a couple more fun questions before we wrap up. I'm not saying they're not all fun, but our friend Marshall from FRC 900 wants to know, what is the Rev office policy for shop cats and or raccoons?
Shop cats, there are no shop cats at Rev. Shop dogs, we allow dogs. So I mean, the Rev office is really pretty relaxed, and try to keep it fun. So.
And then Katie from 253, Katie White in there, asking, why is Rev orange? And then who's your favorite battle bot, and why is it Blip?
So Rev is orange because of, I guess it's almost a weird attraction. It's kind of my favorite color, but I don't know when it started from my personal life. I went to RIT, which is orange. And it's just, when I ran the lab at SMU, that was an orange color. And so when we started Rev, it was orange. Originally, Rev was almost green at one point, but orange was the win out color. And that's just kind of.
Is there a Rev orange hex code now? Can we call it Rev orange?
It's not a specific Rev. There is a specific Rev orange Pantone. Lauren, who does all of our really cool graphics and things like that, she actually got David and I mugs, Pantone orange mugs that just have the orange color for it. But it's fun. And the second part of that question about BattleBots, I love Blip. Blip is a great BattleBot. I mean, huge congratulations to Seems Reasonable on their giant nut with Tantrum. But yeah, I mean, they hit the cute factor with Blip and Tantrum like I was unable to do with Switchback. So I think Switchback might need some eyes next year and a little bit more emotion. So if anybody's got some good
we
ideas,
can hook you up with Christine for that. So
yeah. Well, if anybody's got some ideas for Switchback eyes or Switchback personality, hit us up and we'll chat about that.
And last thing, before we draw for our giveaway, question came asking on the barbecue robot, were there any Rev products or Rev Ion products on barbecue's robot this year at all that maybe were kind of made it in?
There were definitely some Rev things that we used on Switchback this past year. I will tell you, there is a lot more Rev product going into Switchback V2 just because we now have Ion, and Ion is a lot more in scale on things. than the product line that we had when we did Switchback last year. But BattleBots in general really needs a different class of products that even we don't fully create those class of products. So there wasn't that much in there. There will be more this year, but I guess since Switchback was made at REV, Switchback itself might be a product of REV. So I'll go with that as an answer.
I'll look for it for sale on your website very soon. So perfect. Let's go ahead and draw for the giveaway. Once again, giving away the Max Planetary 60-1 on there. And the winner for that, TFM 110. Congratulations, man. I got all your info already, so congratulations to you. And thanks again to Greg and Reb for the awesome giveaways. Greg, before we wrap up for today, any last things you want to close out with?
I think I'm good. I mean, that's, I really do appreciate the time letting me come on Fun and chat with everybody and hang out. And if you've got any questions about Rev Ion, like I said, post about them online. If you've got questions or application examples or anything, we are here to help. And that's kind of the whole point. On the one side of it, it is a business and we are selling products, but we really are here to help you go further with your robot and your design. So reach out to us if you've got any questions, and we're happy to see you and happy to chat with you.
Yeah, Greg, we're always happy to have you on. Rev has been phenomenal to the community, and we appreciate you coming again. And just as a side note, for those who watch the Open Alliance show, Greg was our co-host on there too. So big appreciation for all the work you did on that as well, man.
Yeah.
So awesome. Well, everybody, thank you so much for tuning in. That's going to wrap it up for us. Once again, if you have more questions for Greg or the Rev team, go ahead and go look at the Rev Ion Chief Delphi post or reach out to them via social media or on their website as well too. Hey, if you are watching Fun, we do have a lot of content that's coming back. We're going to start our Tuesday weekly shows again next week. Christine and I will be on to go through and give tiered rankings to all FRC games starting in the 21st century. So we're very excited to talk about. I had to think about that. Are we in 21st century? Yes. So we'll be doing that next week Tuesday. So tune in for that. We have a couple of our shows launching. A Fun Gaming League is coming back as well too. So if you're interested in playing some esports with others in First, make sure you head on to our Discord, discord.gg/first updates now. Thank you everybody for all your follows and subscriptions. It really does mean a lot. Please let other people know about Fun. We're still going live and strong. We had a phenomenal season, and we really appreciate all you. It means the world to us that you tune in and you watch our content with us, be part of our community. It really means a lot. So with that said, we'll see you next time on First Updates Now. Talk to you then. Good night. First Updates Now is supported by the Milwaukee School of Engineering. MSOE offers week-long summer camps where high school students get to preview college by living on campus, exploring engineering programs, experimenting in labs, meeting with professors, and participating in fun group activities. Are you ready to experience STEM at MSOE? Visit msoe.edu/summer to learn more and register. Thanks to Stryker Careers for their support in this video. First alumni and mentors are making Stryker a top priority for their internships and careers. That's because Stryker knows that those in First are the leaders and innovators of tomorrow. If you want to help make the world a better place by creating life-saving medical devices and technology, get started at careers.stryker.com. Thanks for watching. If you want to join us for future fun streams, be sure to click the follow button and turn on the notification bell to know when we're live. Keep the conversation going and provide your input to our content. View archives and unique content at youtube.com/firstupdatesnow. Join our Discord at discord.gg/firstupdatesnow and check out Fun FTC on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and First Updates Now on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter.